Welcome, everyone. I'm Gustavo Tolosa, the webinar host for Dr. McDougall's webinars. And today, while we wait for everyone to log in, I wanted to show you Dr. McDougall's website. His website is drmcdougall.com. I wanted to ask you to go to programs and look under programs, and you will see the 3-day intensive program that is coming up on May 5th. I cannot encourage you enough to attend this weekend. It is one of the most incredible weekends you will ever experience. You will receive all the information that people receive during the 10-day program, but at a fraction of the price. Of course, you don't receive the medical care directly from Dr. McDougall or Dr. Anthony Lim, but you do receive all the information and you get to taste the food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the marvelous buffet that they offer, and you get to see and hear in person Dr. McDougall, Mary McDougall, Dr. Doug Lisle, chef. Then you also get to hear Jeff Novak, and you will get to hear see Mary McDougall, Heather McDougall, and basically meet the team of Dr. McDougall. And I just want to encourage you again to go to this website and take a look at the schedule, take a look at the recipes, and to plan to attend either the May 5th or the September 8th.
All right. So I'm Gustavo Tolosa. I want to welcome everyone to this week's webinar. I am not sure if you heard what I was saying earlier, but just in case, I was showing all of you the website where you can see Dr. McDougall's upcoming 3-day intensive weekend where you can receive all the information that people receive during the 10-day program. You just don't receive the medical care from Dr. McDougall himself, but it is a great weekend and very, very accessible price and fee. So I want to encourage you all to go to drmcdougall.com and look at that and attend. I was planning to attend, and I may still attend, but I'm not sure yet. Dr. McDougall is there, his wife Mary, Dr. Lisle, Jeff Novak, Dr. McDougall's daughter Heather, Tiffany Hobson. I mean, it's the great team. So I wanted to announce that. And I want to welcome Dr. Lisle. Dr. Lisle is the psychologist for the McDougall program. And as far as I'm concerned, he is one of the most brilliant minds of in today's world of psychology. And I know that all of you are very appreciative that he gives us this time once a month. It really is a treat. Dr. Doug Lisle is the author of this wonderful book, The Pleasure Trap. If you don't have it, I would highly recommend that you get it. So we're going to get started. Today is mainly a question and answer session, so feel free to type questions. And I have some questions that some of you have already sent ahead of time, but we will do our best to cover as many as possible. And I want to welcome Dr. Doug Lisle. How are you doing?
Great. How you doing, Gustavo?
Very good.
All
Very
right.
good. Thank you. I am so glad that you have joined us today, and thank you again for making the time.
You bet. Pleasure.
Very good. I wanted to start with a comment that I think is going to interest, a comment/question that I think is going to interest a lot of people, because a couple of weeks ago, we did a webinar for a special group, and you mentioned a new study that has come out in a very prestigious publication about exercise.
Yes.
And how, it challenges all what we have learned during these years about exercising. Of course, I know that a lot of people, are in different stages in their lives. Some people exercise more and they don't do it specifically to lose weight. But I thought it was very intriguing. And actually, then I went and I bought, because I think it's an article that is copyrighted. So I went and I got that article. But I wanted to start with that. If you could give everybody a little bit of the, a summary of what the article is about and why is it kind of controversial in a way.
Yeah, this is an amazing article. This is in Scientific American, February of this year. And I forget who the author is, but Scientific American always has people that are at the top of their game in academia. So this is a major researcher in this case physiology and energy and all that sort of thing. And what they discovered, apparently this discovery has been percolating for a long time, and but it has not it wasn't known to the general public, and I had never heard this idea before. And that is that if a person, essentially all animals, have a budget, an energy budget. So, for example, if you're an aardvark or you're a whale, there's a certain amount of calories that you can burn a day. And in the case of humans, the average woman burns about 1,900 calories a day, and the average man about 2,500. Now, what's interesting about this is that if you are completely sedentary, so if you sit under a blanket and just stare at TV, that woman will burn maybe 1,600 or 1,700 calories. In other words, she will burn most of the calories in her budget. If she does moderate exercise, let's suppose she walks around the block in the afternoon and is up and busy and moving around, she'll burn about 1,900 calories. If she runs a marathon that day, she'll burn 1,900 calories. Now, this is the shock. So we have all assumed, I certainly did, that the more muscular action that you did in a day, the more calories you would burn. And this is apparently not the case. So apparently the way this works is that if you work very hard physically, work your muscles out very hard, what's going to happen is that you will start to divert energy from other systems. For one thing, you will do less action in the rest of the day. You won't notice it. But the main other issues is that there's other bodily systems, and you will start to essentially steal or divert energy from those systems, for example, the immune system. And so this is amazing. So it's not, it isn't anything like I had thought. I had thought calories in, calories out was fundamentally accurate, and that if you worked out harder, you would burn more calories. Apparently, this is not the case. And so I commented on a previous webinar we did, a private one we did with Dr. McDougall, that I was astounded not only by this research, but also by Dr. McDougall's insight into this. He did not know this, but he intuited this and has been intuiting this for 30 years. He's told people it is not, you're not going to exercise extra weight away. You're going to need to eat a much leaner diet. You need to do very moderate exercise, walk around the block and call it good, is essentially what he's been telling people. And it turns out that he was right on target. And I actually don't know of anybody else that thought along these lines. So very interesting. Once again, we find out it's all about the food. Moderate exercise is good. Probably intermediate, even hard level exercise can be good for some purposes, but it's not going to be part of a weight loss program. So keep that in mind. If a major reason you're exercising is to lose weight, don't feel like you need to do prodigious amounts, because that turns out to be simply not in your best interest as far as that goes.
Yes, what you said, we should not be surprised, none of us here, because we know that Dr. McDougall is a walking encyclopedia in medicine, and he's brilliant. And so whether, like you said, whether he's instinctively known or somehow have read other, he that's what he's been saying, and he was right.
Yes.
Dr. Lisle, what other, if we don't really need to exercise to lose weight, what other reasons can you give us? 2 or 3 reasons why exercising might be a good idea to include?
Well, exercise is a very good idea for a lot of reasons. First of all, for one thing, you want to get up to your calorie budget. So you do want to exercise moderately and pretty consistently, because you don't want to be sitting under your calorie budget. So you want to burn the calories that you're designed to burn and get there. However, there's also other benefits to exercise. So, for example, just your musculoskeletal fitness, exercise is useful for keeping your bones strong. Exercise is also very useful and important neurochemically in order to essentially dissipate stress and help your neurotransmitter imbalances so that your mood is better. It also will help you sleep better, sleep more deeply, so which is useful. So all of these things, exercise has comprehensive health benefits, but spinning on the spinning machine for an hour and a half to burn supposedly 350 calories so you can have that piece of chocolate cake turns out to not be true. So that's just not how it turns out that it works. We all thought it worked that way. I certainly did. And it turns out we were flat out misinformed. And so that is not going to be a benefit of exercise. So keep that in mind.
Right. Dr. Lisle, would exercise, in your experience, whether it's personal or by seeing patients, does it help to increase the amount of energy that a person has during the day? Or
you know what? I don't really know. I think the energy, the most important issues with respect to energy is going to be sleep. And so to the fact that exercise can help dissipate stress and help people sleep more deeply, that is a useful thing. But the most important issue, there's only really two kinds of energy. There's caloric energy, and then there's neurotransmitters, essentially the electrical energy in your brain. And if you're fatigued, you're either out of calories or your brain is fatigued. And so that's the most important variable when it comes to people feeling good and feeling rested and energetic, is to not be short of sleep.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's great to know. There is someone who's asking a question here, and she says, why do you think that after 2 years of eating plant-based, would I feel so low energy, really low and always tired? What could it be there?
Well, that person should get a blood test, and we need to see whether or not we've got some kind of anemia, which there's different ways that the person can get anemic, and that will make you fatigued. There could be some kind of infection, low-grade infection that is causing the person to be fatigued. In other words, the plant-based diet is not going to get you fatigued. The plant-based diet should not result in you having any kind of deficiency that would result in an anemia or other condition that would make you tired. Now, it could. So, for example, if you're eating a plant-based diet, you could, if you're not watching it, you could wind up deficient in B12, for example. And if you're deficient in B12, you can wind up with an anemic condition, and then you could be fatigued. So if you are tired, if you're feeling tired, something's not right. And so you're either not getting enough sleep, or the quality of your sleep is not good, or you're battling some dysfunction. So we need some help to essentially understand this. So it's not a turkey sandwich deficiency, though. That's not what's happening.
Could it be that the vegetables, like green veggies and orange or yellow, those veggies give us less energy than starch, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans, or that doesn't really matter?
Well, it wouldn't in principle. In other words, if the person was extremely thin and for some reason they were eating to satiety on foods that were very low calorie density and they were essentially dangerously thin, and they told me they were fatigued and that was their situation, then I would be suspecting that they were an unusual kind of a person that could hit satiety at not actually eating adequate calories, and that their body was essentially caloric deficient. I think I've seen that a few times, and I think I've seen people that when we got them to eat more hearty food, put potatoes and rice and beans in their diet, that they perked up. So I have seen that on rare occasions over the last 20 years, but it's rare. So most of the time, if someone's fatigued, there's essentially a physiological compromise of some fashion, and we need to take a look at their blood to see what's going on.
So the best thing for this person would be to, first of all, do a blood test.
Yes, absolutely.
Just to know. Okay. Very good. Very good. Everybody, if you want to keep typing questions, please do, and I will address them. I'm going to go to a question that someone emailed you, and it says here, on February 14th of 2016, the subject of your presentation at the weekend seminar I attended was Success Forces, Vampires, Wizards, and the Position of Power. Yes. Do you plan to give this presentation again? And if so, where and when? I contacted you via your email, and you responded that this presentation was one of the free sites, but I could not locate it. I would like to you basically know if it is available.
I hope it is. It's not. We have to talk to Rob about that if they've got it recorded. So in theory, it should be recorded, and I would like to get a hold of it myself. But I'm sorry, yeah, I don't have my hands on it. We could do a webinar here with those same slides.
Okay.
If we can't get a hold of the recording and make that available, then that's what we should do.
That would be great. Maybe you can do it next month.
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Always pushing me quick. Yeah, we'll.
Yeah.
All
right. So another question that was emailed. Any advice for me? I very often get sad and overwhelmed at what is happening to the animals people eat, and it breaks my heart just about daily.
Wow. Yeah. So this is this hyper conscientious, highly agreeable soul that has empathy oozing out of every pore. Right. And there are people that I advise to don't be going to the animal rights websites, and don't be listening to the Dr. Barnards or anybody else. In other words, if you happen to be a very sensitive soul, it would be the equivalent if you're a person that's fearful in the dark. Don't be going to horror movies. Okay, so part of you might be morbidly intrigued to go to the horror movies, but then you're up all night. And if you are a sensitive, conscientious, and agreeable creature that is very sensitive to the suffering of animals, then your suffering through this process is not going to help the situation. So you need to understand this. So you are one of 7 billion humans, and we need to intelligently look at the situation and realize that this is not a set of data that you need to be flowing into your life. So you need to barricade yourself, like an alcoholic needs to stay away from the bars. A sensitive soul about this doesn't need to be inundating themselves with all the horrors of what goes on with the animals. We know it's there. We know it's in existence. We know that there's a growing sensitivity in humanity for the plight of animals. This is what the philosopher Pete Seeger has called the expanding circle. So this began with human beings first having empathy for each other. That empathy then extended from small family units out into a little village. It then extended from a village into 10,000 years ago into small towns, and then into cities, and then into nations, and now even into continents. And so you have and now the expanding circle, this very simple fixed moral principle or capability of humanity to actually understand and feel what another is suffering. That is now expanding. Human beings are capable of expanding this indefinitely into including other animals and even plants, for goodness sakes. Okay, so This is a possibility of the human imagination to continue to expand the circle, but it's not easy because the natural circle is very tight and very parochial by nature. So the world follows, and it follows sort of slowly this direction of the expanding circle. But we are relatively early in the game, and it's going to be a few hundred years before the average rank and file human on Earth has the same kinds of feelings that you have today. And so don't feel like you cannot rest and be at peace until this project is done and everybody sees what you see. There will be a small, tiny incremental improvement in human sensitivity to these issues during your lifetime. That is all that there will be. And so therefore, if this makes you upset to be exposed to it, barricade yourself. That's the only reasonable course of action, and realize that there are others that are made of hardier stuff than you, that can take a camera and point it and force people's face in it. The John Robinses of the world. There's people that have a more ruthless grit, that are going to do the job better than you could do them with a lot less internal stress. So this is why we have lawyers, disagreeable, difficult people, to argue our case for us in court. Okay, where a lot of us are pleasant enough and nice enough that we can't handle or would not like that conflict, but we hire these henchmen to go and do the job for us. There are people that understand the ethical issues as we understand them, and that they are fighting, but don't immerse yourself in it. That's just a prescription for misery.
Right. Very good. Very good. I completely agree. Thank you, Dr. Lisle. I wanted to mention something because someone has made a comment here, and I'll explain. But I often spend time with Chef AJ. We film videos, or we attend a conference or whatever, and I see her eat, and she eats these tremendous amounts of food, like literally twice what I eat, or maybe more, and she's still like a little stick.
Yes.
But she wasn't like that always. At some point, she found a way, and according to what she said to me many times, is the type of caloric density that she chooses to eat. And so it allows her to eat a lot of volume. And so I'm saying that because one of the people here is commenting on how she would like to eat more food, and if there is any way to raise the basic metabolic rate and eat more food. So what would you say to that?
There's no way to raise the basic metabolic rate. And so
Okay.
we just found that out in Scientific American.
That's right.
So if you want to eat more food, then you're going to have to eat food of lower calorie density, and that's how it's going to go. So you develop an affinity for zucchini. That's
right. That's right.
I mean, the differences in caloric density in food is quite substantial.
It's
The
substantial.
difference for example, between rice and potatoes is very substantial. So potatoes are considerably less calorie dense than rice. And so a potato, you can eat more pounds of potato than you for the same amount of rice. So yeah, those differences exist throughout the plants that we eat. And so if you are somehow feeling frustrated by the amount of food that you're eating, and you feel like you have to essentially monitor that in order to monitor your weight, then your best move is to shift to a diet where the calorie density drops a bit. If you think in principle that the eyeball estimate is that probably about the ideal calorie density, average calorie density for humans is somewhere in the order of about 560 calories a pound. This is just, there's no magic number here. But this is the Penn State University studies sort of suggesting that that's about what it looks like. However, if you wanted to eat more volume, if that was you, then you take it down to 460 calories a pound. And now you've got the latitude to play with to increase the volume. So that's how you look at that problem.
All right. Very good. Okay, someone is asking, at one point I had this question too, because we hear so much about you have to drink 6 glasses of water every day. You have to drink 8 glasses of water. Until I think I heard Dr. McDougall once. I think it was him, but it was like, how many breaths do you take a day?
Right.
Only the ones needed. So
Right.
how much, is there such thing as how much water we should be drinking per day, or just drink when you're thirsty?
Yeah, you should just drink when you're thirsty. Now, interestingly enough, there's no need to be monitoring fluid intake. Now, I would say there's a little bit of a caveat, possibly,
Mm-hmm.
and that is that elderly people may not signal their thirst or their dehydration as effectively as younger people. So if you are elderly, let's suppose you're over 70, if you're over 70, I might suggest that you might consciously just drink a little bit more water, maybe half a glass of water a day, more than you might otherwise think. You might just file that away as a little project. So, but it wouldn't be anything major. It would be very minor. This is just enough to help the kidneys flush, to not have such concentrated urine potentially. So it wouldn't be a big deal. It would be a small deal. And I think that we can make a case that would be a useful thing. This is, however, a very minor thing. For the rest of us, you would never expect that the machinery of thirst, if it was in your best interest to dial it up, then nature would have dialed it up. There wouldn't be any reason to be messing with this, to try to think that it was either undershooting or overshooting. It doesn't make any more sense to think that you should try to drink more than it should make sense for you to try to drink less. Okay, so nobody's out there saying, well, gee, I think you should drink less water a day than you're thinking. So when you go to the drinking fountain and you're thirsty, make sure you don't drink as much as you want. Nobody's saying that, but it makes just as much scientific sense as the idea that you should drink more than you feel compelled to. So no, that's just an absurdity, with the caveat that I think there's just a bit of evidence to suggest that people in their later years might want to up it just a hair.
Right. Okay, just before we leave the previous question, I wanted to ask you something to clarify. Is it possible to eat a plant-based diet and choose certain foods on a daily basis that actually are going to hinder if you're trying to lose weight?
Yes.
That part. I mean, it is.
Yeah. Coconut, dried fruit, avocado, nuts, seeds. Yeah, there's all kinds of, as well as any processing of plant, whole natural plant foods. So dry cereals with soy milk and bread with earth balance spread on it, and jam and nut butter. Yeah, there's all kinds of plant foods that are essentially very concentrated and will keep excess weight on people. So usually people go through a metamorphosis where their first large hurdle in healthy living is to rid themselves of most of the animal food. A lot of times people will first rid themselves of meat, and then they'll rid themselves of cheese later, or dairy products later. So people usually go through a sort of a natural evolution of their own, and it doesn't happen overnight. And then once they do that, a lot of times that's as far as a lot of people go. And potato chips and beer are vegan. And sometimes they'll stay in the diet because that's as far as the system has gone in terms of delineating healthy versus unhealthy. And some good comes of this, but there's more good to come, and which is getting rid of large amounts of the oil and reducing the amount of refined carbohydrate that's in the diet. And then also, finally, reducing the amount of total processing that's in the diet. So a lot of times people will stare at me in horror when I tell them that if they grind their own peanut butter and put it on their own bread that they make, this may be reasonably healthy food, but it's extremely rich, and it's what's keeping the extra 15 pounds on them. And yes, but it's vegan and it's all natural. It's like, well, it's not all natural, because that processing process essentially breaks down cells, makes the food artificially soft, makes it very easy to digest,
Fiber.
and very concentrated. So, yeah, this is a process as we move towards the dominant amount of our food being unprocessed, whole, natural plant food.
I think you mentioned once how you had a patient that I don't know if it was you or if it was Dr. McDougall, but who couldn't figure out why she wasn't losing weight, and she was eating quite a lot of hummus, but bought in the store and she didn't think that it had oil. And
Sure.
hummus can be actually about 2 weeks ago. I went to a restaurant. I thought I was choosing something healthy, and they brought me this hummus, and it was literally swimming in oil.
Yes.
So of course I sent it back. But yeah, it's possible, right?
Oh,
to
sure.
eat a lot of oil without noticing
Yes.
or knowing.
And a little bit of oil. Oil is so rich that a tiniest bit of it can put you over your calorie budget.
Right.
So remember, your hunger drive is designed by nature to hit that calorie budget right on target. But if we slip something in the diet that is unnatural, particularly oil, because it's so concentrated,
Right.
we can slip it in there, and now very easily you can be 200 calories over your calorie budget. And if you're 200 calories over your calorie budget consistently, that's a pretty healthy diet. You're doing a pretty good job. But that would cause you to sit at an equilibrium that would be above your ideal weight. So nobody knows how much that would be, because individuals and genetics is involved. But I have an eyeball estimate that's a way to help people think about the issue. And that is that if your diet is 10% too concentrated, i.e. there's 10% too many calories in it after you've eaten to satiety, then I would expect that you're probably 10% overweight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And if your diet is about 20% too concentrated, I'll bet you're about 20% overweight. And so, a woman that wants to be 145 pounds but is 175 pounds, that person is 20% overweight. Probably her diet is about 20% too concentrated. And it wouldn't take much. Wouldn't take a lot. It might take an extra 400 calories a day to keep that, but 400 calories a day is a couple tablespoons of oil. And so she can be thinking she's doing a great job, and in fact, she can be doing a very good job. But that culprit can be her Achilles heel and be the difference between being 175 and 145.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Another question that was emailed was, what is the best diet and protocol, supplements maybe, for someone who had ovarian cancer 10 years ago and a recurrence a year ago, doing well currently, is on a plant-based diet?
What supplements?
It says, what is the best diet and protocol? And she puts in parentheses supplements with question mark. For someone who had ovarian
cancer 10 years ago.
And now it's recurring a year ago.
Yeah, I would write to Dr. Alan Goldhammer at truenorthhealth.com. My recommendation, sounds like the person is already doing probably everything they can do with their diet. And so the next tool that I believe is valuable in the drawer is the possibility of water-only fasting. And so I think, we've been saying that quietly for years, but now we actually have evidence that this is extremely useful, particularly with a particular kind of lymphoma. We've had several cases in a row now that people have recovered. And we published one case study in the British Medical Journal that was extraordinary. So I don't think that this is a panacea for all different kinds of cancer, but it is this is suggesting that this may be a very useful ancillary tool. And so I would write to Dr. Goldhammer at healthpromoting.com. That's who you're writing to. And write and ask him about whether this situation makes sense and get his opinion on that.
Okay, great. Okay, another question is that this is my 8th week as vegan, and I have started getting nosebleeds. I never before had any nosebleeds, and I'm starting to get concerned. Any ideas?
No, I don't have any ideas. So this This is why we need Jeff Novick around here, and we don't have.
That's right, we do.
I actually, I mean, certainly, this is once again we circle back around to, possibly an anemic condition developing, but you wouldn't develop that in 8 weeks on a vegan diet. So this is, somebody may know, and that's actually a question for Dr. McDougall next time around. This is, remember, I'm a psychologist. I know I know a few little details about the medical side, but I don't know that much.
That's right. Okay, well, I'm going to make a note and make sure next week I ask that question to Dr. McDougall. So if you're able to log in, I can't remember, I think it was Ron. If you're able to log in next week, we'll do that. We'll ask the question. Someone is asking for suggestions for encouraging a preteen to get on board with a whole food, plant-based diet. Is that too young to start introducing information about the medical side of the diet, discussions about cancer, things like that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be bothering with this at all. So let me explain the way I think about children and basically young people with respect to healthy diets. The only consideration that I have with young people is dairy products. And the reason why is my concern that dairy products may be associated with autoimmune disease. So I am not concerned about meat, and I'm not concerned about French fries, and I'm not concerned about Coca-Cola. I just don't care. These problems that the long-term possible health concerns from French fries and hamburgers and mayonnaise, this all has to do with way out into their future, decades from now, the impact on their health. And so it is not setting up bad health problems early in life. These problems are very resolvable and will come out in the noise when they start adopting healthier habits later if they want to. And even if you kick them out of your house at 18 after having they lived perfectly for 18 years, if they go and they eat conventionally, they're going to face the very same problems that a conventional eater would. Won't make much difference when they're 60. What happened between 0 and 18? So so we have to keep in context what we're really trying to do here. And the most important thing that I want to do is I want to keep dairy products out of kids' mouths. The total effect of dairy products with respect to autoimmune diseases, and the reason I'm concerned about that is that cardiovascular disease isn't something that I'm concerned about with a child. They're not going to have strokes and heart attacks early in life, not unless they're smoking cigarettes, for goodness sakes. So so I'm not worried about the major things that we worry about, and therefore children don't need to be focused on that or concerned at all. I am worried about things like type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, lupus, ulcerative colitis. I'm worried about problems that may be preventable or reduce our probabilities if we stay away from dairy products. So as a parent or grandparent, the only battle I want you fighting is to educate the children that we want to stay away from cheese and ice cream and milk, okay? That's what we do in this family. We don't eat very much of that. We eat it rarely because there are problems for you, possibly, and we want to reduce that. The rest of it, don't make a fuss about it. Have healthy food in your home. Have them understand the difference between healthy and not so healthy. But let's not be worried about things that we shouldn't be worried about. Remember, these little people are going to live to their life expectancy is in their 80s, eating conventionally. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so what will happen with their health will be determined between their 20th and 80th birthday. It's not going to be determined early.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dr. Lisle. There's a question about, let's see if I can pronounce it right. Gabapentin. How does it work biochemically? Why did my internet search show that it's cause of problems and people are not satisfied? which pain medicines are best for permanent ankle injury pain?
Yeah. Gabapentin is a pain relieving
Okay.
med, and I wouldn't know anything about it. That's all I do know
Okay.
about it.
All right. So that's another question maybe for Dr. McDougall.
Yes.
All right. Very good. So maybe we have time for a couple of questions more. Any suggestions on how to act in a new relationship where your partner, whom you really like, does not share your ethical vegan view and way of living?
Yes. I want you to know that most people sort of come to these conclusions or change their mind over long periods of time. So I've actually watched Dr. McDougall change over 20 years. So he is much more sensitive to animal rights issues than he was 20 years ago. And so it's not that he didn't care 20 years ago, but he has become increasingly sensitive. And so keep this in mind, that people walk this process in their own time. So if you like the person, it means that you are picking up all kinds of cues that you see a lot of good things about them, and that means their character, or else you wouldn't like them. So if their character is acceptable and you're attracted to the person, then be patient with this issue, because they come from a very different land than you come from, and so they will listen, but don't try to force it at them. They'll listen and they'll absorb this over time. And if the relationship doesn't work out, then you didn't waste a lot of time.
Right.
So,
Very good. All right. People say that blue is your color, Dr. Lisle.
what's that?
Your shirt.
Oh,
AJ said the blue is your color.
oh, good. All right. AJ, thank you.
All right. So someone is commenting that I lost 150 plus pounds and without changing anything at all, have slowly gained back 40. And I was slightly hypothyroid when I quit my doctor. Any thoughts?
Yeah, say this again. So she lost 150, then gained 40 back.
About 40, and she had hypothyroidism, and she quit going to her doctor or his doctor.
She quit going to her doctor, but she's hypothyroid.
Right.
So, okay. This is now a doctor question, because somebody needs to make sure that the thyroid is right, that the person is getting the appropriate medications, so that, because if she's hypothyroid, then this could be the straight reason why she's gained the 40 pounds back. So we've got, sometimes there's a time and place for modern medicine, not often. Not often. There's a time and place for modern medicine, and sometimes getting the thyroid right, getting the amount of medication right, can actually be surprisingly tricky. And so sometimes there's some effort and hassle involved in getting that just right.
Okay, great. Would you mind, someone is asking, describing what you have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Well, Gustavo just saw me here, knew that I was eating some Ezekiel cereal with almond milk and banana and raisins. So I'll have that, or I'll have oatmeal in the morning. So it's typically bananas and raisins with oatmeal or some kind of cereal. So that's breakfast. Lunch and dinner can look very similar. So I'm either eating Italian food, i.e. I'm eating pasta with tomato sauce and with salad, and usually some vegetables cut up into the pasta. Or I'm eating Mexican food, so I'm eating tostadas, where I'm gonna have corn tortillas. I'm gonna bake them, and then I'm gonna have rice and beans and lettuce and tomatoes and some avocado and some salsa on that. So that sounds good right about now.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And so, or I'm eating Asian food. So I will go out, because I don't know how to cook that, and so I'll eat some Ethiopian food. There's a place that I take my mother. We eat Ethiopian food. We did that last night. So these are the kinds of things that I do, and probably the staple of my dinner is going to be just a bunch of steamed vegetables. There's going to be potatoes, yams, carrots, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, and corn. Just in a big steamer, and that's whenever we do that, we always remark that that's actually our favorite meal. But I intersperse these other things.
Right. Okay, great. I have to say hello to Eugenia here because she's from Argentina. So, hola Eugenia, ¿cómo estás? Okay, so she has a question, but I think Eugenia, I'm going to ask that question next week for Dr. McDougall, okay? For two reasons. One is maybe more medical, the other one is because we're running out of time. So thank you, Dr. Lisle, again. And everybody, please send questions to the email to send questions is webinar, not webinars, but webinar at drmcdougall.com. And I think, Dr. Lisle, we have scheduled our next webinar at the end of May because there's a conflict that we need to take care of. Okay, so thank you again. I think I mentioned when we were chatting off camera before that I printed the newsletter, the Dr. McDougall, the free newsletter from March, and I saw a recipe here for the 3-bean chili, and I made a video about making that. So if any of you here want to stay and watch that, you're welcome to do it. You don't have to, but after we're done this, I'm going to play that video, okay? All right, thank you, Dr. Lisle, and I hope you have a wonderful lunch with the food that you've described that tastes so good.
Very good.
And we'll see you next month.
Terrific, Gustavo. I'll see y'all soon.
All right, very good, thank you. And remember, everyone, that the 3-day intensive weekend is in May, and it's in Santa Rosa, and it is an amazing weekend. I think it's one of the best events you can attend because you get all the information that people get during the 10-day program, but at a fraction, truly a fraction of the price. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. So if we're going to end the webinar now, and I will show you how to prepare the 3-bean chili that appears in March newsletter from Dr. McDougall. If you haven't signed up for his free newsletter, please do. It's invaluable. This is brilliant. He wrote about the Civilized Sustainable Healthcare Act, Dr. McDougall's version of healthcare. But there are some really good recipes here. So goodbye, everyone. And if you would like to stay, in just a few seconds, you will see how I make the 3-bean chili. Goodbye. See you next week.